Hello, and welcome to our short presentation regarding context. So what is context? The Oxford English Dictionary defines it as the circumstances that form the setting for an event, statement or idea, and in terms of which it can be fully understood. And this idea of an awareness of context supporting your full understanding of something is why it's so important within the art world. So looking at the Oxford Visual Dictionary, you can see that context is a situation, but what we're looking at here is a frame of reference, a contextual relationship. So when we examine an art object, as we will probably be asked to do for PIC, we need to find out about the frame of reference for that object, things beyond the artist who's produced it, and look at the contextual relationship perhaps between it and other objects. So the key words in this particular definition would be structure, framework, frame of reference and circumstances. Now, as we find more information about the context of a subject, it's likely that our ideas about the subject will change. And I'm going to give you a very straightforward example. So if we look at our first image, it seems like it could be quite a pretty place to live. There's a pretty church, there's a park, lots of trees. If we zoom closer in, you find that it has pleasant names, so the 5 Bells, Snowdrops. Clearly near a town, but if you wanted somewhere quiet to live, it might be appropriate. Now let's find some more information about it. So we've zoomed out a little bit to the map view, and we can see it's by a pretty reservoir. And there's lots of green space. There's green space along beside the reservoir, and there's green space and parks around this area. However, if we zoom out a little more, we can see that it's right by Heathrow Airport Terminal 4. So further knowledge of the geographic context of this particular place might save us from making a potentially disastrous buying decision, because it's clearly going to be very noisy. Now, moving forward from that, we want to look at how context might change our understanding of the art object. So first of all, we need to look at what context we might perceive an art object within, and these could be many things. They could be the technological context, what was going on technologically when the object was produced, so perhaps the invention of the computer, or perhaps some kind of new process that supported the invention of the object. The social context, what people were thinking and doing. Political context. These are part of the more general historical context of the object. The geographical context, where the object was produced. The artistic context, is it part of a movement, and did that movement follow on from a previous artistic movement? And the biographical context, which is the context of the artist's life. So what we'll need to do is classify information. When we find out information about an art object, it cannot simply concern the artist who created that object. It has to be when the object was created and what was going on. We need to start to see the art object as a product of its time and place and analyse it accordingly. We find that it's a common error at PIC 1 to look at art objects purely in terms of the maker of that object. But to do well in practicing context, you must consider the object from other contexts. This will enrich our knowledge and will change perceptions of the object in many cases. So we could ask questions such as what, if any, technological advances contributed to its making process, or perhaps it was a backlash against technological advances. What events were going on when it was made? Has it been created at a time of sort of great political or social change? And if so, how is that reflected in the art object? And where was it made? Was it made in Europe? Did it use other cultural influences? If so, why is that so? So you start to think about the sort of object as part of a wider framework. You start to think about interesting questions that you might ask about it, and you can go and answer those through your research and your analysis of that research. So I'd like us to consider the multiple contexts presented in the following diagram and how they might affect our readings of images. I want to put across the point that art history is something to be considered from different perspectives. It isn't a single narrative line that dwells on just one thing. So this poster can also be downloaded from the main course page, but you can see it's divided into timelines. It's divided into media theory, art, consumer art, politics and science. And it lets us know what's going on. So theories around here, Sigmund Freud. So surrealism, there might well be a link between these two things. At the same time, you've got kind of the Spanish Civil War, we're leading up to World War II. World War II, we've got Jackson Pollock and abstract expressionism in America, close on the heels of World War II. Lots of different things going on, and what I'm trying to point out here is that you can make links between wherever your art object is, let's say it's performance art, and what's going on at the time. So around about the sort of same time as performance art was coming into play, we have a man going into space. We have chaos theory being invented in science. We have ideas of structuralism, and we have minimalism in the sort of more mainstream fine art world. So there's surely connections between these things, and this is what I mean when I say I can't sort of give you sort of hard and fast information about a context, because the context and their effect on the art object will depend absolutely on your choice of art object itself. But you can do worse when you've decided what you're going to be discussing, then kind of place it on a map such as this and look at what's going on around it, what's preceded it in terms of historical events or technological changes or theories. So to conclude, a context is a framework of information regarding a given art object. The context of the object will change how we perceive that object. The idea of context moves our analysis of the object beyond the simply biographical. And examining an object from a range of perspectives will enrich our knowledge and perception of that object. Thank you.